You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk, or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
All right, folks, good evening. This is the Jen and Rick Show. We're live right now on KLRNradio.com. We do this thing usually every Tuesday and Thursday. We weren't able to do it Tuesday because I finally figured out what was broken with the internet. I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but apparently we had a neighbor come over and help us clear out our garden area, and my wife decided to extend it. Well, we asked them last year to mark anywhere that they had lines running, and they're like, oh, no, you don't have any lines running over this way. They're all towards the back of your property. Wrong answer, because, they ran over the phone line, which killed my internet, because we have Windstream. So, yay. It took me all day Wednesday getting it fixed, and then luckily, since we asked and they told us wrong, they didn't charge us to fix it. So, yay.
Wow.
Yeah, fun times.
Well, sounds about like something I've been going through. I mean, just having people tell you wrong and not inform you correctly. My car got towed the night before last, overnight, from my building that doesn't have permits. And tried to figure out what the deal was there. They said, "Oh, well, you weren't in the database. Like they have a contract with the parent company that owns our properties." And they said, "Oh, well, we don't have. You weren't registered. It's like all the vehicles are registered. Like some do have permits, but yeah, it's not necessarily required. You're registered in the database. And I guess whenever they do hand out the permits, it automatically registers you in the database." Well, we have lived here since December and I turned in our car info and stuff, but they never gave us anything, never told us anything. Never worried about it, never saw a tow truck or anything. Oh, yeah. Guess you're not in there. Not sure why. Oh, and here are some permits. That would be the backup in case the database didn't work. You would have the permits that go on the windshield. But there's nothing in our lease. They never said anything when we were going through it all. And so that was a really fun way to spend yesterday in the freezing rain, was to go, 45 minutes out of our way to go pick up my car at a tow yard. The complex is paying for, but it was still a pain in our butts to have to do. And thankfully, my husband was able to help me and I wasn't just stranded all day costing more money, because you know how tow yards are. It's like the shadiest business ever. Apologies to anyone that's in the business, but this place is open 20 hours a week from 12 to 4 and increases the price every 8 hours, even though you can't access or pay them in that amount of time. So, and the cash only and this and that. And I mean, it was just ridiculous. But we got there at noon when they open, and they weren't there till 12:30. And then it was like, it's just such a racket. And nobody called. They just went trolling. They just went rolling through to try to see what they could drum up. And anyways, so that was That's been really fun. I always love it when people don't follow through on stuff or give you bad info on something.
Yeah, fun times. That actually kind of reminds me of some of the shady stuff that went on when I was working security. Some of the reasons we wound up getting some of the contracts that we had was because we had companies that were supposed to be handling things like that as part of their security contracts, and they would basically just call in the tow truck company that they had to deal with and basically just have them hook up every car they could find and just drag them all off. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been there. But
I had a shady situation in college where we had tow trucks that pulled in, like 4 of them, and they blocked it was a small parking lot, and they blocked everybody in. There were only like 20 units in the complex, and they blocked everybody in and started hooking up cars, and they would just move their truck enough for the other truck to get out with a car, and making people, everyone's running down there because they hear it, and they're making people pay them not to hook their car up, like right up front, making up amounts, like the pretty girl that was over here with really long legs showing and her short skirt was only charged $20, but the guy right next to her was charged $70, and they ended up pulling a gun on everybody because everybody got really pissed, obviously, and kind of surrounded it, and they ended up pulling guns, and so I called in an armed robbery, and that was really fun.
Fun times.
It's like parking wars.
Man, I just sorry. I'm seeing things come across my newsfeed, things I hadn't kept up with very well today because I had a guest. So all this nice new information coming off about the resource officer's kind of fun.
Yeah. So, and then there was some confusion. I think at first they heard resource officer and thought that meant something different than what it does. Thought it meant like more of like a security guard and not a cop. And no, it's actually like, so there was confusion on whether he was actually armed or not. He absolutely was. It has been confirmed. It's the resource officer comes from the sheriff's department. So, which is why the sheriff was able to comment on it. But I found it awfully convenient that he didn't let this information come to light until after the town hall last night, in which he chastised and held responsible pretty much anybody except, first of all, his officer, and second of all, the actual shooter who committed the atrocities.
Yeah, no, I'm not really surprised, to be honest. But the thing that kind of, and you know why this has hit a nerve with me, I used to do this type of work, not as a resource officer, mind you, but I spent a lot of time in a uniform with a badge and a gun. The simple fact of the matter is this person is going to have to live with the fact that they failed their entire community for the rest of their life because they had one job. The thing that upsets me, and I keep seeing this all over social media, is everybody keeps talking about an AR-15 as if it's some sort of unstoppable magic force that turns everybody into Rambo, and suddenly, single-handedly, they can go on an unstoppable killing spree because they have an AR-15 in their hand. If this guy had done his job, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is reasonable. There's been some discussion about what other people could have done or what you would do if you were in the situation and yada, yada, yada. And for someone like me as a citizen, and I'm not going to lie, as a woman, I think my reaction would be a lot different than, say, someone else someone who's a man who has more weapons training, or someone who is actually like military or law enforcement, or just different life experiences, right? Bring us all to a different place and determine how we react in various situations. And it's hard to know how you would react until you get there. However, this is someone who is trained to respond to situations such as this. And that they said it took him about 90 seconds to get to where it is. This attack lasted 6 minutes, in which he killed 17 people, as far as I can tell on the timeline. And so it took him 90 seconds to get to the position where he basically held his position, and he stayed there for approximately 4 minutes. So basically he got there in enough time to at least try to go in and do something. And like you said, his job, this isn't an average citizen. This isn't one of the teenage kids. This is the reason he is at this school, is for situations like this. Now, he may never have thought he would be in the position where he would have to be stopping an armed gunman, but that's what you accept when you come on the job. I know he may have thought he was just going to stop kids from using trash can bombs and having smoking marijuana on school property, but this is the real deal, y'all. I mean, nobody can ever know when something like this is going to happen or where it's going to happen, and your duty as an officer is to protect the public from something like this. And if it does happen on your watch, that you do something. You don't just sit. You don't just sit and wait for it to be done. And that's pretty much what he did. He's since resigned, and they've opened an investigation into him. But I'm sorry, I'm just not going to go for – I totally understand that humans get scared, and that is perfectly normal, and that a lot of people have the instinct to flight, not fight. But unfortunately, that is just not a luxury that someone in his position is allowed to have. It's just not. Turn in your badge.
Well, so here's the thing, and I don't want to speak for every resource officer, but I can tell you that in my experience, most of the time, resource officers in most cases are usually fairly long in their career, or they've screwed up pretty badly in the career that they had, so they wound up being posted somewhere where they thought they could do the least amount of harm, or there's somebody who's getting really close to their punch-out date, so they're just trying to ride their clock until they can take their pension. I'm not sure which one this guy is, but I think his actions prove which one he was. I'm sure he's probably had a less than stellar career as a law enforcement officer, and the fact that look, I've done the job, both public sector and private sector. Even after I couldn't do it as a police officer anymore, I did it as a standing security officer, private investigator, personal protection officer, all of it. I've done the job. You had one job. Your job was to make sure that those kids at the end of the day got home safe, and you failed. You had 15-year-old kids showing you up while you're standing there shaking in your boots. We had junior ROTC officers who were putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that other people got to go home, and you are still there. You're lucky, sir, that I'm not going to be able to find where you live and come visit you in person, because I personally would punch you in the face. That's not a threat. That's a promise.
Well, I think that's... it just, for all of the people that have stood up and said, that part of keeping a society safe is arming the good guys, and that a good guy with a gun can absolutely either be a deterrent or at the very least stop in action the bad guy with the gun, or go down trying. And this is one of those things that gives the other side reason to laugh and to go, oh, so you're saying that the good guy with the gun didn't stop the bad guy with the gun? Funny that. And they're making all these little snarky comments. Well, the fact of the matter is, this guy might be a good human being, but he was not what I would consider a good law enforcement officer with a gun. So he was a bad cop because he could not stand up to his duty, unless we find out some extenuating circumstance. But from what I can tell, he could not live up to his duty. And people make mistakes, and I'm not saying that they don't, and people get scared and they run away. But like I said, this is not really an excuse you get to have when that is your position, and we shouldn't allow for it. He has resigned, and I assume he will never work in law enforcement again. So I hope he finds something else that he's actually good at. But I'm just not going to be apologetic about being hard on someone who has made a career of this. He wasn't just some guy that came along and decided to hunker down with his gun instead of going in. This is what he's there to do.
Exactly. But this is... I don't know what to say about this, to be honest, because the whole thing just sickens me. And what really drives me crazy is we hear this sheriff basically, like you said, slamming everybody but his own department. I just saw a report that there were local police officers that actually came in with a 10-minute response time. They were the first ones on scene actually trying to help while this guy was hunkered down wherever he was. That's a
unacceptable.
problem. That is
well, and I think maybe here's an issue. You kind of touched on it before. Like maybe the resource officer positions are being looked at all wrong, because maybe they are kind of the ones just riding the clock out, and maybe it's taken as a less serious job. I don't know. That's not the way it's been in my experience. And in fact, they weren't even called something other than an actual police officer. I mean, that it was in their title. So like in my hometown and at the high school and middle school that I went to, we did have designated officers for our school, and they were trained by the city police. They were they went through the academy with everybody, and at some point in their career, they were offered or applied to be a part of the school district police force run by the Austin Police Force. And, they have their own K-9 units. They have their own drug units. They have their own detectives, which specifically, specialize in things that are more likely to affect children, like child abuse, looking into truancy, and if there's something more going on there. I know a lot of them personally, and it's a very intelligent, diverse, and absolutely in no way some sort of, write it out job or whatever. At least it's how far as they take it here. And that's at all the Austin Independent School District schools, middle schools and high schools. And it's been like that since way before I entered high school in the late 90s. So I don't know how well they can always deter a situation like this. I know that they can absolutely help to stop one, like this guy refused to do. But I do know that at my school, for sure, it deterred all sorts of crap, because everyone knew who they were, and they made themselves known, and they walked around the corner at a moment's notice, and they were never just posted anywhere. They were always moving and always popping up on people, and always but also friendly with the students, made friends with the students and got into where they got the info. Like they knew what was happening in that school. If you wanted to know what was going on at Bowie High School, you went and talked as an adult. You went and talked to Officer Rodriguez. He was in command there, and he knew everything. He knew where the parties were going to be on the weekends. He knew which kids were doing what, who was dating who was doing drugs. I mean, he knew all of it. People talked to him, they told him, and then he was able to really scout out some situations. And we did have a couple school threats of shootings and bombings while I was there, because it was right after Columbine, that were handled very swiftly with arrests made and everything. But so I think that there can be a way, at least in my experience, to have officers that can take this kind of thing seriously, that school districts can absolutely utilize, local police force in order to do it. But I think in a lot of places, people just don't think anything like that's ever going to happen. So they don't seriously consider it. And they don't seriously, and even the people that are given those jobs in some of these communities just don't take them that seriously. Oh, they're stupid high school kids. And unfortunately, that's just not the case.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think part of my comment regarding resource officers was more of kind of the whole, law enforcement officers really aren't nice to each other. It's really about the only way to put it.
Well, no, but I mean, what you said though was not that different from what I've seen from a lot of people in their experiences around this country with officers at schools. So it seems like that is more common than not, what you're saying about it. That seems like that was not my experience in my particular situation, but it seems like from a lot of stories that are told and reports that are done and news articles that are written, that is more likely to be the case than is the more proactive case like I experienced.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other. I just know that, if anything, this guy just proved every stereotype of any school resource officer I've ever seen, because it's just, I mean, even somebody that, isn't even in that line of work anymore, if I was in that situation and I was armed, I would have done something. I might not have lived through it, but I would have done something. Because that's what we're trained to do. The only upside that I keep coming up to, because I've had this type of training, because the kid pulled off a hell of an attack. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, he went in prepared. He had smoke bombs. He pulled the fire alarm. He got everybody into a pretty crowded corridor on more than one occasion and made it all the way up to the third floor. But I just keep thinking, with all of the vilification of the AR-15, if he would have done that with 2 or 3 9mm pistols, with the fact that those bullets don't ever really stop, he would have done so much more carnage. So I mean, while we're vilifying this scary-looking gun, we keep forgetting that honestly, most of the time, if you look at the statistics, a lot of the mass shootings in this country with the most damage were pulled off by handguns. So before anybody gets these bright ideas about, well, we're just going to ban everything, that's great. What are you going to do about black market?
Right. No, all the guns don't magically disappear. I was going to say, every time there's a situation like this, everybody tends to really focus on how they got in or how they were able to move through the school without being stopped in the first place. And I don't know in every situation, but a lot of times this happens at somewhat larger high schools, and I'm not sure where everybody else, how they went to school and what their high schools were like. But let me just tell you about my experience in high schools here, and even in California, and in Oklahoma, and in New York. Actually Louisiana and Arkansas. I've been to a lot of different schools, and not every school is a single building that goes up. In fact, most of the schools I've been to, and a lot of the schools that were built in Austin and even in Houston and Dallas that were built in the 80s and 90s, are very much more open concept, almost like community college of some sort, with like all the buildings disconnected, open air hallways, central malls and things where people gather, and various buildings for different wings and stuff that are all very disjointed and disconnected and make it very difficult to lock down just a single point of entry. And when you're talking about having 3,500 kids at a high school, you can't just have one entrance and one exit. And especially not with a layout that is a little bit more spread out and open, which works really well for the kids and for their, just for the flow of school. But it's not that great when you're talking about, security. And unfortunately, a lot of times in a lot of these situations, they can't completely just cut off everything. So I think I am less concerned with those kinds of things, because I think in a lot of places, and depending on the architecture and the layout of the schools, it's just not feasible to say, oh, they can only come in through the office and that's the only way they would be able to get in. Well, that might be theoretically true, but if there's lots of doors and lots of areas that are open throughout the day, the criminal's not going to go check in, just like they're not following the law in the first place. So, of course, and a lot of times these people can blend in, and that's just the unfortunate truth. I've been to high schools to teach 4 or 5 times in the last 5 or 6 years, and every single time I'm assumed to be a student. I have to assert myself and be like, no, actually, I'm the guest choreographer, or whatever it is. And usually I'm not believed, and I have been apprehended by hall monitors before for not being in class. So these people blend in, and if you think that they don't, or that there's only going to be one point of entry, well, I mean, it just from a lot of the high schools that I've been to, I just don't think that that's not the issue to focus on. I mean, it'd be nice to just have one entrance, but that's not really the way that it works.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've kind of been toying with is ways to maybe design schools in the future to make them less susceptible to these fish in a barrel scenarios. One of the things, and I've seen these before, one of the things that I think we should have happen is during certain circumstances, I think every classroom should have the ability to basically have the doorknob basically slide into the front of the door, so to speak, so that people from the outside can't necessarily open the door. I also think that each classroom needs its own separate fire exit to the outside.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that those are bad ideas. The other thing is like my high school, you can basically build it like a big, ugly parking garage, and then you just have huge, thick brick walls. So even if they are trying to shoot, they're not just shooting through normal wall and, normal drywall and stuff. They're actually having to shoot through big, big brick walls. But the other thing that I was going to say that was equipped towards, I guess, like pretty much after Columbine for us was that every teacher had was able to directly speak with one of the officers on duty at our school via comm within seconds. They all had them under their desk, and they could push the button and call an officer immediately, and it went straight to the officer's radio. There are just things, and that was like 1999, 2000 when that was installed there. Again, you're talking about a school that was very big in a growing metropolis that, was trying to stay a step ahead right after, kind of what people think of as the original modern age school shooting. So that certainly that had a lot to do with that. But there are a lot of things that we can do. And I know everybody talks about arming teachers. I'm not as comfortable with that because I think there's a lot of them that, first of all, don't want to be armed. And so we should never force something like that. They're unwilling or they're scared or they're anxious or whatever. But I think completely not allowing weapons on campus and not having some people that are armed and undergo, evaluation, certification, make it hard. I don't care. Would really do well for most of America.
Well, so I have a slightly different take on that, but for different reasons. And I actually know people that have done this personally. So with like law enforcement and actually teaching are some of the only careers left where you can basically put 20 years in and then retire and either go do something else or if you want to, or just stay home. So I know lots of people that have done their 20 years in law enforcement and then gone back to school because now that they have to have degrees to be police officers, there's only a few other classes they really have to take to become certified to teach a subject. So they'll actually do their full 20 years in law enforcement, and then they'll retire from law enforcement and then go do teaching. So one of the things that I've been talking about, and actually a guest brought this up last Friday, is teachers that already have the training and in a lot of cases already have the federal certifications, which means the same ones that like air marshals and stuff use where they can actually carry on a plane. Because there are a lot of teachers that already have those type of credentials, but they're banned from being able to carry their weapons in the building. So we're not necessarily saying that people that, don't want to or haven't already had the training should be forced to carry a gun. But one of the things that would help is if we had, because there's usually 5 or 6 in each school, just nobody knows who they are. The 5 or 6 that have done, former law enforcement work or former military training and have the certifications to be able to carry a firearm should they choose to, those people should be allowed to in the school and just nobody really know who they are till they're needed. But
hey, no, and I think I totally agree with that, and I'm fine with I'm really fine with whatever as long as it is people that are willing and that are comfortable and that they, I think should, because of their precarious position and working among children, should have to, rather than your average person owning and carrying a gun, I think they should have to go through a more rigorous certification and reevaluation, mental evaluation yearly or something like that. And I'm okay with all of those kinds of restrictions that you want to, and not restrictions, but I mean, kind of ways in which you want to test them on this and make sure that we're keeping those arms in the best hands and really capable hands. But I do see a lot of people arguing for everybody at the school to be armed. And I think it's a lot of lip that's just kind of coming out, and they've heard someone say teachers, so they just kind of roll with it and they haven't really thought it through. And it's like super pro gun and everybody have a gun, which, I'm not going to lie, if everyone could actually be comfortable with that, I would love for that to be the case. We deter a lot of crap, more than just school shootings, but that's not the reality. So, for everybody kind of arguing that like all the administrators, all the teachers, everybody should be armed. I mean, just think about it for a second and think about some of the teachers, by the way, that you constantly bitch about being terrible and awful and they don't deserve the money they're getting and they don't deserve this and they don't deserve that. You want them to be armed? You talk about how stupid they are, how they brainwash kids, all of these things like, not just every single person needs to be responsible for that. So just think about that a little bit. But I really think that having some key people, I had a world history teacher who put me on the path of what I wanted to study, who was actually an active Navy SEAL at the time he was teaching us. He used to joke right after I had him the same year that Columbine happened, and he used to joke that we did not need him to have a gun because he could kill anybody he wanted with his pinky. And so that was always nice being in his room. And whenever there was kind of like a scary day where there were threats being made, because that's what happened all over America after that shooting, all these copycats came out or wannabes came out and wanted their little 5 minutes of fame. And so I ate lunch in his classroom and I stayed as close to his classroom as I could for the next few weeks. But having some solidly trained people, whether it's because of their previous experience or it's because they go through the rigorous, kind of regulation now, I think would be great.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. But on that note, we are officially long, so we're going to take a quick break. This is the Genovix Show. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Stay tuned.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, $10,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Folks, welcome back. This is General Nick. We're live on KLRNradio.com. We do this thing every Tuesday, Thursday, minus plowing incidents, by the way, at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central. And actually, since we are down to the last few minutes of the show, I do have a question I want to ask you, only because I have a guest coming on next Friday who is actually trying to get together a list of ideas to try to combat something about this whole gun situation that nobody's really talking about. And it's not the people are the issue, or the banning of all things and most of the things everybody's talking about. But he does have a pretty interesting take. So one of his questions, and he's trying to get input from as many people as possible. So I told him I'd ask the people that either co-hosted with me or had been guests on the show between then and now to kind of give their input if they chose. So one of the things that he brought up is, and we kind of touched on it earlier, so if we ban all the things, how are we going to stop people from getting guns when they can simply purchase them illegally? What can we do to combat that?
What are we doing to combat opioids? What are we doing to combat marijuana federally? Since that's still illegal and a bad thing, according to the feds. We can't. I mean, we can somewhat, but we're going to be throwing a lot of people in prison. So let's build those suckers up, because we're going to need a lot more room. And you're going to have a lot of firefights, I feel like. Because they're going to have to raid. They're going to have to spy on people. They're going to have to get all sorts of intel and then warrants in order to go in and go after people, everyday people that have retained their firearms. And it's going to be a mess, a bloody mess, I'm afraid. I just don't think it's possible. Everyone points to Australia and their, buyback and then turn in and then minimal confiscation that they had to do and yada, 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 yada. But people don't talk about how they didn't exactly ban guns, and they didn't really go confiscate on a mass scale like you think. They're like, and nothing happened, it was fine, and now they don't have mass shootings. Well, they have had some terrorist attacks that involved guns, but no matter. And not only that, but some of their weapons are back up to the level pre turn-in and confiscation. So I think it's a bad way to go. I think it would take another, I don't even know, 5 or 6 generations to get people to be to the point where they just don't buy them anymore, don't have them, have gotten rid of ones their families had and passed on to them, and the market is gone and people don't want them. But the bad guys still will. That's the problem. Even if you change most of society's mind, the bad guys will still want them. And we can't even maintain our borders. How on earth are we going to maintain guys with what they say are like the magical, death machines, assault weapons? How are we going to do that? We're not going to be able to. Not without a military state.
So one funny thing about this whole assault weapon, assault rifle, blah, blah, blah,
it's a scary looking gun. That's what it is.
But that's the whole thing. That's not even a part of the English language. Assault is a noun or a verb. It's not an adjective. Wait, are
you telling me? Wait a second, though. I could have sworn AR-15 stood for assault rifle, kill 15 people in 60 seconds.
No.
No? But right, I mean, that's the kind of crap we see all the time, right?
Well, yeah,
and
but
when
these
you go,
same...
no, really, what is an AR?
No.
What does AR stand for? And people are like, "Oh, assault rifle," and you're like, "Oh, no, try again."
No, it stands for the manufacturer.
The manufacturer. Good Lord.
But you know, but that's part of what we've been talking about with this whole gun debate. Is the fact that people don't even understand what it is that they're debating. They see an AR-15 and they automatically think that it's a weapon of war. I mean, that's like I have liberal friends on Facebook who kept posting this thing over and over again about the saddest thing in this country is the fact that somebody who's 18 can walk into Walmart and walk out with an AR-15. Walmart hasn't sold an AR-15 since 2015.
Beyond that, it's just absolutely asinine. These guns, and you know, for some reason they have this idea that there's some like crazy power that comes with them, and that makes anybody who just randomly shoots them can just slaughter people without any, you know, training or anything. And you know, fortunately, that's actually not true. Unfortunately, yes, they can shoot people just like they can wielding any gun and spinning in circles at a crowd. But that doesn't make them excellent marksmen, and it doesn't mean that that weapon is so precise and amazing that it turns your average person into some, you know, Megadeth sniper. That's not the case. And trying to say, I see all these disingenuous arguments about how, you know, someone with a handgun has 0% chance against someone with an AR-15. And that's simply not true, especially not in a contained environment. So, and I'm not even like an expert on all this stuff. I've read enough in the arguments on both sides to see what the, you know, logical conclusion is here. And to top it all off, I mean, I believe in our Constitution. This was not an added-on amendment. This was this is the Second Amendment among the original 10 Bill of Rights that our founders made. People can argue all day long on what arms means and what they thought it meant, which, you know, they can keep on saying that it didn't include guns or weaponry of this kind, any sort of automatic or semi-automatic weaponry. But they have no idea, number one. And number two, they said arms. They didn't say bayonets. They didn't say muskets. They didn't say, you know, pocket knives. They said arms, meaning what you use to defend yourself, what you use to arm yourself against an enemy. And at the end of the day, whether I like guns or not, I love our Constitution. And I will defend the fact that it was put in there. And if you want to change something about it, don't go through these pussyfooting ways around Congress and trying to get some executive orders in and then maybe a few bills passed. Go ahead and go for it. Try to amend the Constitution. Be honest. Say what you really mean. You want it taken away. You don't believe in that right. You don't think it's God-given. You don't think it says the founders intended. And so go ahead. Try. Good freaking luck, because you are turning more and more states against your argument every single day with the way that you manipulate and lie to the public and pretend like you don't want to completely eradicate this right.
Yeah, I don't know. All of it to me, the media spin, like the whole, all of the things that have come out since the mass shooting and the kids being used as props on both sides, and then there was the we can't criticize the children, which I agree with. They should have the right to have an opinion, but that doesn't mean that they get carte blanche to say whatever the hell they want. At the same time, one of them yesterday who decided not to partake in the panel actually accused CNN because he was wanting to come in and ask questions about how to fortify schools, should teachers be armed, or there are other things that we should do, and CNN basically gave him what they consider an approved list of questions. Now, I don't know if this is true, and one of the PR people for CNN blatantly denies this, but let's not forget, these are the same people that denied giving certain candidates pre-debate questions, and it turned out later that they did just that. So yeah,
I don't trust them as far as I can throw my shoe, but these kids have been through unspeakable horror. I'm not a fan of going after them, but I do agree. We had a good friend that said, but when they put themselves up there and they decide that they want to have a seat at the table and they put their opinion forth, I'm personally leaving it alone, but I think it's absolutely fair to criticize that opinion, to debunk it, to break it down, to do whatever it is that you would do with another adult, as long as you're not being a nasty jerk about it. They want to play. They want to sit at the adult table, then they're going to be treated like adults. And I think that this has all been too soon. I think shame on the adults in the room that decided that they wanted to put them up there and allowed them, even if it was the kid's idea, that those parents went, yeah, you know what, go be on national TV and cry and scream at somebody that doesn't agree with you. And this is the best way for you to recover. You know what? My friend died the very same day that this shooting happened, and I just went to his funeral, and I'm still not in a place I didn't see it happen. I was not there when the car hit him. I did not, watch him take his last breath. And I'm still not in a place where I feel like I am emotionally stable enough to really speak in a stable and authoritative way on the subject and on what happened and what I think about the driver who hit him. I just don't think that it's a smart idea to put any of these faces up there like that. And I think shame on everyone who thinks it is. I know that the news has a job to do and that this is their thing. And I don't even necessarily blame them for trying. I think it's obnoxious and maybe disgusting, but whatever, that's what they do. But it makes me really unsettled that so many people think this is such a good idea for all of these kids to be on camera or, in Congress, like at rallies and all of these things screaming right now when, we're just a couple weeks out.
So I do have
not even a couple weeks out. We're a week out, basically, a week and a few days.
So I do have one question for you, because I was actually kind of taken aback by someone who made a comment yesterday during the CNN town hall, and that was one Mr. Marco Rubio, who suddenly spoke up and said, yeah, I plan on trying to introduce legislation to raise the purchase age for long rifles from 18 to 21. Huh?
Yeah, I think, I have a couple things to say about Marco and going on this town hall. First of all, a lot of people were invited on the right, and most of them refused. They declined, and I don't blame them for declining, but you've got to give him some credit. It's his state. He's their senator. He stood up there, and he took the beating. I mean, he did. He sat on that hot seat and sweated and took the beating in the face of very emotional and afflicted people who are very angry and want to blame it on the Republicans alone. So I have to give him a lot of credit for facing the music. I think that I'm not sure whether that's really something that he had already pre-planned and thought about, or if it was, I think it's a political move. I think that it's to appease, at least throw one little bone to the side, something that he probably thinks won't even get passed. I don't know if I don't know. Maybe he wholeheartedly believes that this is a better course, and I'm not sure that he's wrong. But there's a lot of other things that need to change too, if that's the case, is my opinion. A whole lot of other things need to be raised on the age limit if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've kind of been talking about. I mean, and honestly, I think this is one of the things that makes our society confusing for folks that are just starting to be considered adults, because there's so many different age milestones. Like, you can vote at 18, you can join the military at 18, you can sign contracts at 18. You can't drink at 18, though. You can't
rent a car at 18.
Yeah, you can't rent a car till you're like 25.
A lot, and except for some really crappy hotels, most places won't let you rent a room at 18 of any decency. And you don't have to be off your parents' insurance. You don't have. I mean, there's all sorts of things it's very hard to get signed in major cities now, maybe small towns, but in major cities, it's very hard to sign a lease before you're 21, 23, 25 without a cosigner. So you can't do that on your own. You can't live on your own necessarily without basically a guardian. So, if all of these things are going to have various ages and most of them are around the age of 21 to 25, then let's raise it all.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Or bring it all down to 18. Or everything goes to 18. I mean, it's so ridiculous to tell someone they're a completely illegal adult and are legally responsible in a different manner, not only as someone who can fight and die for this country and be drafted for such, but also as someone who will be tried and convicted as an adult if they commit a crime and go to a completely different place than they would as a minor. But you can't have a beer.
Yeah, none of it makes sense to me. I guess one of the only things that, and this was kind of brought to my attention, I had Justin Kinney on today, and we had a retired Marine in the chat. And one of the things that I was talking about was, we pretty much understand now that with the human brain, there's part of it that doesn't really form until you're usually sometime around the age of 25, and that's the part that helps you actually understand and be able to process through the consequences of your actions. So that's been my thought process as soon as they said, well, until kids are 26, they should be able to be on your insurance. Well, those aren't kids. So, I mean, if we're going to start calling people that are 26 years old children, then maybe we should start seriously considering extending the emancipation age until the point where we know that they should be at least at the age where that part of their brain should be starting to function properly. But then it was brought to my attention that one of the reasons that having somebody come in usually between the ages of 18 and 21 to do things like join the military or join the police force or whatever the case may be is it gives them time to basically tear them apart and rebuild them in their image before that part of their mind starts taking shape, because usually once you hit about the age of 25, 26, your psyche's fully formed and it's really hard to basically have you be rebuilt in somebody's image again. So, I mean, I understand the psychological aspects of why they want them to join the military young. I also do think that they've understood a bit about that part of the brain that understands consequences for a lot longer than it's really come to light, because why else would people be willing to go jump in front of bullets?
Well, yeah, and I think you're right, and I don't necessarily think it's wrong to think that way of like, okay, we want to get people in when they're still malleable, when they are not so set in some sort of way, whether it's psychologically or routine that they've created for themselves, or bad habits that they've created for themselves, that we can't train and equip them best to do X job. I even know people in other fields that like to get people in younger if they can, to really be able, that don't have as much experience, because even with someone like waiting tables, someone who has been waiting tables for 15 years may be an amazing waiter. But if they're so used to a certain way and certain type of management or a certain, setup, they can be the biggest pain in my butt, no matter how good they are, because they fight every little thing and they want to do it their way that they've done it, and they're not working for the same people. So I understand wanting that, and I don't think it's wrong to want that. Like you said, we've come a long way. We've learned a lot. And, it was pointed out to me today that the drinking age basically was raised 3 years when a group of really angry mothers got together and forced legislation and pushed the issue hard enough, and they were mad enough to make it happen. And that's essentially what I think we're going to see, with at least some level of increased regulation for gun control.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do think you're probably right. Well, believe it or not, we're just about out of time.
Woo!
Yeah,
we blew through that.
I looked down, I was like, holy crap, it's 10 o'clock. All right, so why don't you remind folks where it is that they can hang out with you when you're not on the air hanging out with me?
Well, you can find me mostly on Twitter at J Homestead, Facebook JR Homestead, and check out misfitspolitics.com.
And you can follow along with me on Twitter at RadioIsRick, or shoot me an email at rick@klrmradio.com. I do have one thing that I want to say, because it didn't really fit in with either of the shows that I did either yesterday or today. I want to extend my sincere condolences to the Graham family. Billy Graham actually passed away at 99 years of age yesterday. And all of the I hate Billy Graham Twitter, y'all need to die in a fire. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
And on that note, folks, we are out. I will see you guys tomorrow night for another episode of America Off the Rails, starting here at 7 Eastern, right here on KLRNradio.com. And I'll be back to finish off the night on Robinson and Wright, Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. You guys take care. God bless. And if you have been snowed in or iced in for the last several days like I have, I'm so sorry. We'll see you guys tomorrow.